All right, today we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to take a trip back in time and walk through one of the ancient world's most legendary construction projects, the palace and temple of King Solomon. Let's go see the sheer scale and artistry for ourselves.
So, let's kick things off with just one number, 13. That's how many years it took King Solomon to build his royal palace. To put that in perspective, that's almost twice as long as the 7 years it took for his even more famous temple. That number right there tells you this was an undertaking of just unimaginable ambition.
Okay, so our first stop on this tour is that very palace complex. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just, a house. It was this sprawling statement of power, of permanence, all designed to shout the glory of a new golden age for his kingdom.
So picture this. The whole complex was this huge network of buildings, all connected. At its heart was the massive Palace of the Forest of Lebanon. Why that name? Because it was built with a literal forest of cedar columns. This amazing wood, imported from afar, wasn't just for looks. It was a symbol of incredible wealth and global influence. Then you had a grand colonnade for public events and the Hall of Justice, which was paneled from floor to ceiling in that same fragrant cedar.
And believe me, this whole thing was built to last. I mean, forever. The source tells us the foundations were made of these huge, expensive stones that were perfectly cut and finished. We're talking about blocks that were 10 cubits, that's about 15 feet across, just massive. From those foundations all the way up to the cedar beams, every single detail was about permanence.
All right, let's leave the palace's stone and cedar behind for a minute. We're heading over to the temple courtyard, and the main material here shifts to bronze. Here, the story is less about sheer architectural size and more about jaw-dropping artistic skill. And it was all the work of this one guy.
So, who was this guy? Meet Huram of Tyre. Now, this wasn't just some random worker. The text paints him as a true master artisan, an expert engineer, an artist, the whole package. Solomon brought him in specifically to create the temple's most spectacular pieces.
So, what were Huram's first big projects? Well, get this, 2 colossal bronze pillars that stood right at the entrance to the temple. These weren't just holding anything up, they were powerful symbols greeting every single person who came near. And they weren't just pillars, they actually had names. The one on the south was Jachin, which means he shall establish. The one on the north, Boaz, meaning in it is strength. So before you even set foot inside the temple, you're hit with this powerful statement about divine stability and might. And the size? Whoa, just staggering. Each pillar was 18 cubits tall. That's almost 30 feet of solid bronze. And listen to this, that's before you even get to the ornate tops, the capitals that they put on them. And those tops, the capitals, this is really where you see Huram's genius shine. Each one added another 5 cubits of height and was an absolute masterpiece. You've got this delicate, woven network of chains, 2 rows of pomegranates, a symbol of abundance, and the whole thing was shaped like a lily blossom. The mix of raw power and this beautiful, intricate detail, it must have been just awe-inspiring.
Okay, so as we move deeper into the courtyard, your eyes are going to be drawn to what is maybe the most ambitious bronze piece of the whole project, a massive basin known simply as the sea.
I mean, the scale of this thing was just immense. The basin was 10 cubits from rim to rim. That's about 15 feet across, and it could hold over 10,000 gallons of water. Think about that. This was a monumental piece of engineering, one single enormous bronze vessel for the priests.
So what's holding up all that weight? Get this. The sea stood on the backs of 12 cast bronze bulls, which were ancient symbols of strength and divinity. They were set up in 4 groups of 3, and each group faced one of the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west.
But Huram's work wasn't all about these gigantic, monumental pieces. He also made 10 identical, movable bronze stands, and each one was a complex little masterpiece. They had panels with lions, bulls, and cherubim. They rolled around on 4 bronze wheels, kind of like chariots, and every last bit of open space was covered in detailed engravings. This was functional art at its absolute finest. So, when you start adding it all up, the 2 pillars, the Great Sea, those 12 bulls, the 10 stands, all the other tools, the sheer amount of bronze was mind-boggling. In fact, the source material admits something stunning. There was just so much of it that they never even figured out the total weight. They couldn't.
All right, for the last stop on our little tour, we're stepping out of the courtyard and right into the temple's inner sanctuary. And as we go inside, everything changes. We leave that world of bronze behind and step into a sacred space that is just dripping with pure gold, a material saved only for the most holy and divine things.
So the very first thing you'd see? The altar for the incense. And it's not stone, it's not bronze, it's made entirely of gold.
Right next to that, you've got the sacred table where they place the bread of the presence. And you guessed it, also pure gold. And how was this place lit? By 10 massive lampstands, all pure gold. You had 5 on the right side, 5 on the left, and with the light bouncing off every golden surface, the whole room would have been filled with this incredible, otherworldly glow. And look, the opulence didn't stop with the big stuff. It was in every single detail. It wasn't just the main furniture. Every single tool, the basins, the wick trimmers, the bowls, the dishes, even the sockets for the doors to the holiest part of the temple was crafted from pure gold. So, okay, the building's done. The incredible furnishings are all in place. But there's one last thing to do to really finish this monumental project. Because when it all came down to it, filling the temple's treasury wasn't just Solomon's job. It was a multi-generational thing. Solomon brought in all his amazing new works of bronze and gold, but he also brought in the silver and gold that his own father, King David, had dedicated years before. This was really the culmination of 2 entire reigns, father and son. And that really brings us to our final question here. A project like this is so much more than just architecture and art, right? It's a declaration. When a kingdom, a nation, pours this much wealth, this much skill, and literally decades of work into one place, what are they really saying? What's the message they're sending to the world and to their own future generations?